call the meeting to order. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone. I'm Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm you can hear me by verifying that you are present. I'll start with the commissioners that are present. Travis.
Present.
And Jonathan.
I'm here.
Thank you very much. Staff, Leah.
I'm here.
And Jan.
Present.
Thank you. We'll go to expected speakers. They may not all be on, but we'll check just to see. For Adams Road is Jeff Walsh here. If you could just unmute and say you're present, so you make sure that you can hear me. And
He's on, but
yeah, okay, I'll continue and then we can go back. For 136 Old Upton Road, Norm.
I'm here.
Thank you. For Abbey Woods, that would be Abby Rad or Leslie Wilson. I don't think they're on yet. I will just check to see if Jeff is in front of his computer yet. All right, we'll have to ask later, so let's keep on going. This open meeting law, the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, as most recently extended on March 29, 2023. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. This meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you're using a dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note that you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals for your cue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking on the hand icon at the right bottom of the Zoom menu bar to indicate they would like to speak. If you're using a dial-in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called upon. Participants who raise the hand will be recognized one at a time and will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside the purview need to be addressed by the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board and traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. Okay, having said that, any action items that you'd like to discuss, Leah?
no action items tonight.
What? No action items? Okay, so
No.
we have 10 minutes.
No action going on there?
There we go. There's
We
the
have-
voice not heard from.
We just have a
Um,
discussion item, but no action items tonight.
Do you want to do the discussion items? Just
Sure.
to check in who's actually has reviewed that. So the discussion items is that we're reviewing a couple of draft comment letters in response to the proposed DEP changes to Stormwater Wetlands Protection Act and a few other regulations associated with wetlands and other coastal stuff. The two letters are the MCMCP letter that is in draft form that was circulated, and the other one is basically our consultant for the MS4 has also drafted a letter for review. So I'll go to the other Conservation Commission members. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Jonathan?
Not in depth, not yet.
That's okay. I've been looking at comments now for about 2 months and you can get lost in it. And then, I don't know, Travis, have you had a chance to look at it or do you have any kind of overall sense on the two
Didn't
letters
get
that?
through it all.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the
So-
ones I saw seemed fine, but I didn't get through all of them.
Yeah, so, and again, MACC is doing a comment letter and I've been working with them on kind of a subcommittee on the stormwater stuff to go through it. And we have a lot of comments, and a lot of comments are around how do we implement, how does the Conservation Commission deal with the complexities of the new regulations, around those inconsistencies within the new regulations. Some of it's very straightforward. It refers to one thing in one place and says something different in another place. There's those type of inconsistencies. A lot of it, though, for MACC's perspective, are how is the Conservation Commission going to deal with it? The two letters I saw where they had some of those comments in it, and then as far as the MSMCP one was a little bit more trying to push the envelope and wanting to have things added. It still had a lot of other questions, around it. And then as far as the VHB or the MS4 consultant, that was pretty straightforward of just identifying things that are inconsistent or would be difficult to kind of do. So I think each letter has its own pluses and minuses. Just like any letter, probably similar if you read MACC's letter. We have our own internal letter from our company that I work for, and our letter's a little bit different. It just has more to do with how would we document, information to submit for a notice of intent based on the new regulations. That's where a lot of what we're talking about. So, Leah, I know that you were kind of looking at, do we want to, send in a letter to MACC, send in a letter that says, hey, we've reviewed these and we understand these comments and, they're worthwhile and need to be addressed. Is that really what your final game plan is?
I just was wondering, I think we've gone past the first question, which is, does the commission want to do their own letter? I think we're leaning towards no on that. But I didn't know if you guys want me to draft something saying that we're endorsing these others. If you feel like that's helpful, I can do that and send that to DEP. I didn't know if there were any that you did not want to hop on board with, like if you wanted the VHB one to just be endorsed by the MS4 team at the staff level. The commission doesn't have to hop on that one. Any thoughts,
Right.
really? Just let me know what direction you want me to move in.
Okay. Yeah, and from my perspective, I think, having kind of a more broad-based letter in referencing these comment letters, because there's value in each one of these. I mean, there's, I think VHB had 38 comments. I forget how many MSMCP has. MACC's got 40 or 50 comments. So each one of those letters has a lot of comments, and I don't think we have to, say we agree with every single one of them, but some of the key items which they're trying to do, and MACC does it up front, and I think MSMCP does it up front too, is to say, here's kind of the broader questions, and they're both talking about how a conservation commission is going to enforce it because of the complexities and stuff. So, maybe it is, I would like to see a letter, and Travis and Jonathan can kind of weigh in on this. I'd like to see a letter just saying that we've had the opportunity to review several comments letters, and you can list them and saying there's a lot of valid, comments in here, especially around the ability of local conservation commissions to, enforce the proposed regulations based on their level of complexity, and some of the new requirements and so forth. I mean, I don't know if we have to get into any detail, but I think it's good for DEP to hear from the Conservation Commissioners.
Okay.
So, I don't know, if Jonathan or Travis, if you have any other kind of comments on that.
That approach works for me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, I just looked at some of the comments as you were talking, Sandy, and it just, it looks like reading a specification to me. You're analyzing a small incremental change to something or a wording to something, and I'm not an engineer. I'm not an expert. I'm a volunteer and a construction manager. So,
Right.
I don't know if you want my thoughts on the specific wording changes of this. I don't think I'd have anything specific to add. So,
Right. Yeah, and again, it's just, to me, it's the ultimate goal is to have, I mean, in Leah, you can even mention that, the Conservation Commission is very happy to see, stormwater and climate change being addressed and that the stormwater requirements, the precipitation requirements under the act is, and under the stormwater manual or handbook is being updated. It's long overdue. We appreciate that. And then just generally the big picture, we want to make sure that it's clear and we've seen these letters and feel like they have, valid kind of comments and things like that. I don't think it has to be a long letter just to say, yeah, this is what we're worried about as a Concom, and these letters have some really good comments in them and stuff.
Okay.
Do you need anything else on that? Any other kind of?
I don't think so. Just kind of a logistics question. Do you guys want to sign it? Like we'll circulate it for you to sign, or do you want me to sign on behalf of the commission?
Let's make it easier for you. Just you sign it on behalf, and you can
Okay.
even put there as discussed at our Conservation Commission meeting on this date or something. Yeah, however you want to kind of wordsmith that to say this was discussed in a meeting of the Conservation Commission, and it was not voted on, but it was discussed that we would like to submit this letter to let DEP know how grateful we are for updating the regulations, but also the concern of how complicated they are and the ability of volunteers to enforce the proposed regulation.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Yep. Yeah, and if Travis Johnson have anything else or any other suggestions, I think that's fine.
No, that works for me.
I think it'd just be great if a lot of Concom, either they sign on to MACC or whatever, or however they want to do it, is just that they actually get letters from the different conservation commissioners. So, all right, sounds good. 1 minute to 7:15. All right. Anything else before we start the public hearing?
Nope.
All right, very good. All right. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw and the Grafton Conservation Commission will hold public hearing to act upon a notice of intent and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the replacement of a culvert at 46 and 60 Adams Road. And who's here to speak to that?
So we have Art and Jeff here this evening. I'll just kick it off with a little intro because the town
Okay.
is the applicant and it's a conservation land, Hennessy. So you guys probably remember quite some time ago the old farmer's culvert, if you will, blew out and has continued to worsen. We had to shut the trail down. Folks can't get across anymore, and that restricted our mowing last fall for the grassland bird habitat up past that crossing. So we're here tonight to talk about replacing that culvert.
Okay. And who's gonna
Oh,
lead that?
you're muted, Art.
Thank you. Art Allen from Ecotech, wetland scientist. Prepared and filed the notice of intent. Working with Jeff Walsh from Graves Engineering on the plans. I'll lead off and then I'll let Jeff go through a brief description of the plans. Maybe Jen, if you could maybe show the pictures that I sent. There was an overview of the trail and then a close-up of the existing culvert crossing.
Do you want the most recent photos?
Either set. I mean, Jeff sent some and I sent some, whatever's more handy for you.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Jan. So this is this picture shows the existing culvert crossing, well, former culvert crossing. This is the Misco Brook, where it crosses the old cart road to access the back part of the property. Again, as Leah mentioned, this access provides passive recreation, trail access to the back part of the property, as well as equipment access to mow and maintain the habitat on the backside. So right now the culvert is completely washed out and non-functional. The culvert has collapsed and washed out. And in addition, the beavers have gotten in on the upstream side of the culvert and caused impounding and overflow at near the crossing location. I delineated the resource areas in November of 2022 and described those in a report that was part of the notice of intent application. In the vicinity of the culvert, there's obviously, it's a perennial stream, so it has a river front area associated with the mean annual high water line or bank of the stream. That was delineated. You can see actually the red flags in this picture on the downstream side of the culvert. There's also bordering vegetated wetland on each end. There's land underwater associated with the river or stream. There's also bordering land subject to flooding in the project vicinity. Bordering land subject to flooding was located through analysis of the FEMA elevations, and Jeff might speak to that more during his presentation. But delineated on site where the bordering vegetated wetland, the bank, mean annual high water line associated with the stream. And those areas are located on the site plan. The project proposes impacts to land underwater and bank associated with Misco Brook for the culvert replacement, as well as bordering land subject to flooding. We avoided any bordering vegetated wetland impacts because we're proposing just to upgrade, replace that existing crossing with a stream crossing standards compliant structure that Jeff will go into in more detail. Again, no BVW, bordering vegetated wetland impacts, and temporary impacts to bank, land underwater, that will be mitigated by the culvert by replacement of the stream channels within the stabilized box culvert, and then temporary impacts to bordering land subject flooding, just associated with access, temporary access to the construction area and all that. Any disturbed areas will be revegetated. It's just the existing field and the grassy cart path access, and those areas will be restored and revegetated. There'll be no net loss of flood storage, no fill associated, just the culvert removal and replacement and restoration of the stream bed following culvert installation. So I believe this project meets all the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act. My narrative goes into some detail on the performance standards and functions and values. DEP has issued a file number for the project, and their only comments were recommendation that once the cofferdam system that will be used to dewater the work site during construction is determined by the contractor who's selected, that information be provided to the commission, along with an update once the beaver control or beaver deceiver method. We're not planning to remove the beavers, but just to put a control structure within the culvert and upstream of the culvert that will allow water levels, the beavers to be maintained in their habitat, and to allow water levels to be controlled without blocking or compromising the culvert in the future. So those are the only two comments from DEP. I think unless there's any specific questions about the resource areas, I might turn it over to Jeff for a description of the actual culvert and the replacement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Art, and we'll go to Jeff. Did anyone else get disconnected for about 15 seconds there? Or was I the only one?
I did not.
Okay, so then I will skip on that and keep on going. It just went out for literally seconds and came back in. Just enough time for me to begin to panic. But after that, let's, Jeff, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Jeff Walsh with Graves Engineering. Yeah, the culvert that exists is a 30-inch diameter corrugated metal pipe culvert. I believe it's partially clogged and it's obviously washed out. The bedding material around it washed out, and some of the coarser material was deposited in the downstream area just below the culvert. What's being proposed is a reinforced concrete box culvert. We were challenged with this with a number of different factors. First of all, it's in an area of critical environmental concern, the Misco Brook watershed. As Art had pointed out to us early on in this, if we triggered certain thresholds, there would be other filings that we would have to go through. So we're careful not to fill any BVW. I believe that was one of the major contributing factors to triggering additional permitting. With respect to not being able to fill BVW, we didn't want to fill floodplain. Yes, we could compensate with flood storage somewhere in here, but thought was we probably wouldn't have to do that, and we were able to not fill floodplain. The critical elevation we held in our design was the top of the existing impoundment. And quite frankly, we didn't have much elevation between the top of the existing impoundment and the invert of that existing metal pipe, which is the invert of the stream channel. So we were elevationally challenged, to say the least. I reached out early on in the design process to a few different manufacturers. One guy come back with bridges, which looked nice, but they were a lot of money, even for like a nominal 20-foot span, a 15-foot span. Another one came back. The culvert manufacturers would talk to us and share information when we could provide for any culverts that can have 2 feet of cover over the culvert, and that's to make H20 loading for heavy vehicles. My thought on this was not to the best we could, provide H20 loading or something as close to as we could to get that equipment across the river. And it's not just, the mowing equipment is light. It's the 10 years, 20 years, 40 years from now, somebody wants to do work on the other side that may require heavier equipment to come through, wheel equipment especially. And there's those vehicle loads that were concerning. In typical culvert design, you need to provide 2 foot of soil over the top of the culvert. We couldn't do that, so our concrete design, we basically spec'd out the culvert, but the contractors are gonna have to speak to the manufacturers to get a specific design for this site, following the parameters we set in our plans. We allocated for up to 18 inches thick of concrete for extra concrete and reinforcement. Usually we see about 12 inches of concrete on these. We only had a few feet to work with between the top of the impoundment and the invert channel. So quite frankly, what you're seeing for a culvert is gonna, even though the culvert is proposed to be at least 4.5 feet tall inside dimensions, it's gonna have the substrate infill. And there's only gonna be anywhere between about look for my notes, 1 and 1.5 foot of exposed elevation, between 1 and 2.5 feet of exposed elevation between the bottom inside of the culvert and the stream substrate. So what we had proposed is a culvert that I had the luxury to observe construction of out in Spencer a few years ago. It comes as a box culvert. You would set the base of the culvert as a typical bottom of a box culvert, but it's got ribs across it to hold the substrate in. Then with the top of the culvert still not in place, the contractor can infill the stream material, grade it to place, and get it all set. So then they can set the top half of the structure. To use an open bottom type of structure on this just wouldn't work, because again, you'd only have 1 to 2.5 feet of elevation to work with, and it's just impossible to infill the stream channel later on. So I know these exist. They're a little specialized, but nevertheless, this seemed to be the way to go. The overall inside width of the culvert is 12 feet. And again, we designed this to basically try to mimic the downstream channel, bring that up through the impoundment, where right now it's a 30-inch pipe, and try to make it a more consistent stream channel going upstream to the inlet side of the inlet side of the culvert. And then lastly, as recommended by Art, it's not a permanent feature to the culvert, but the intention is to take down the existing beaver dam, set that material aside, and reuse that material to recreate a beaver dam just upstream of the inlet of this culvert. And where it'll be the beaver dam material. It's not a permanent feature of the culvert, so it can be removed at a later date, just like any other beaver dam potentially could be removed if necessary. I didn't want to design a permanent feature into this. As far as construction activity occurs, the way we envision it happening is we've set aside space for the temporary cofferdam. We didn't specifically design a cofferdam. I've seen different contractors come up with different ideas. The most common sometimes I see is large sandbags, stuff you actually move around with equipment, but there are other ways to do this. So we want to let the contractor have the flexibility to pick his method as long as it meets the criteria of where we're working in minimal disturbance, subject to the commission getting a look at that later, as and I guess DEP did mention that in their comments. I envision bypass pumping of the stream channel, and I envision the pump being set. If you can see it on this plan, there's an X on the impoundment, kind of up page and to the right of where the culvert is. I envisioned a bypass pump sitting there while the cofferdam is in place. That would allow work to occur from the side coming in from Adams Road. Any dewatering effluent from the excavation in the work area would be pumped quite a ways, unfortunately, but it gets the water up out of the 25-foot no disturb zone by quite a bit. And we've got an impoundment for temporary dewatering, containment, and sediment deposition. And we also have a long grassy area for which that effluent could discharge for hopefully capture of more fine grain material that might have gotten out of the temporary impoundment. You see access, there's another sheet that has access, shows a contractor's access all the way from Adams Road. We allowed the limit of work to include the whole parking area just off of Adams Road, thinking that, they may have to temporarily park some equipment there as it gets brought across the road before they're ready to move it down to the work area. And we did set a staging area, as you can see on this plan, up out of the, on a little bit of a hill, on the approach from Adams Road to the work area. I believe I've hit everything I could. I'd like to speak for a minute or two, if I could, about FEMA. The 100-year floodplain in this area, FEMA shows it at 4-foot increments. So, which are outside the area shown here. The dashed lines you see crossing the page, what we did is we took those 4-foot increment elevations, and then along the center line of the stream channel, assuming a constant gradient of the floodplain, we determined what the 1-foot intervals would be through the work area. And from there, once we established those elevations by way of these dashed lines, we drew in the floodplain limit based upon the topography, seeing this is an AE area where there's been a detailed hydrologic study and elevations assigned. Unfortunately, the elevations in this area were not in 1-foot increments. I will say that at the culvert, FEMA came up with a floodplain elevation that tells us that there's 4.5 feet of water that goes over the impoundment during a 100-year flood. If that is in fact true, and I have no reason to question that it isn't true, that tells me that there's a hydraulic restriction that causes this large-scale flooding, not at this impoundment, but farther downstream. Perhaps in a narrowing of the stream channel and topography, or perhaps even at the Merriam Road crossing of Misco Brook. So nevertheless, that 4.5 feet of elevation of water over this impoundment tells me that this stream crossing in and of itself is not the hydraulic restriction during a 100-year flood. Nevertheless, in much smaller storm events and under natural conditions, there will be a larger opening in the stream channel compared to what the 30-inch pipe offers. But yet we've graded it out in such a way to try to create a trapezoidal channel within that culvert crossing. And what we want to do is, again, use some excavated material from around the pipe and cobbles and such that were deposited in the stream channel just downstream. We want to use those to make up the channel substrate within the culvert. I believe I've touched on everything I intended to, and I'd be glad to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right, thanks. We'll go around to the commissioners. Travis, any questions?
So the existing culvert's like a 12-inch culvert, maybe? It looks pretty small. I've been out there.
It is small, but it's actually 30-inch diameter.
It's 30-inch. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, but in the scheme
And
of
the new one, would be. You said there'd be like what, a foot of clearance.
Yeah, the opening within the new culvert would be 12 foot wide and would vary in height between 1 foot and about 2.5 foot.
I guess my question is, I mean, it looks to me like if you go back to the 30s, the old aerial photos, combination, I'm guessing, of that cart path embankment plus beaver dams have created a really nice wetland upstream. Are we going to drain that wetland with this plan? Or are we going to bring back the hydrology that it's been at the last, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years or so?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I follow your question. What the hydrology with respect to the beaver dam and the impoundment and the impounded water, I'd like to not speak to that because that to me is a temporary situation. But if we could speak to your question insofar as an unimpeded stream with respect to beaver activity, I feel that what we're proposing here, in one respect, it meets the stream crossing standards that the 30-inch diameter pipe does not meet. But it could have a different hydraulic function. I didn't go through a detailed analysis, but what we did was we tried to keep a reasonably small opening at the bottom of the stream channel, trying to mimic what's downstream, which is, we came up with 5 feet. And then we have a trapezoidal cross section rising up about close to a foot. So what we created was basically 5 foot wide by about a foot high trapezoidal channel at a lesser slope along the center line of the stream, with a rougher surface than what the pipe offered. And I didn't run numbers. I would say that we're probably not identical to the 30-inch pipe, but we're certainly not orders of magnitude different as far as hydraulic capacity versus water level on the upstream side. And then after that first foot of rise, there's a shallower rise for another foot. So that again creates the trapezoidal section, trying to mimic the geometry of the downstream channel. So there seems to be a depression immediately up channel in Misco Brook from the culvert. And that, if that depression that seems to be there wouldn't be affected one way or the other. It's, if anything was going to be affected, it's only going to be over the elevations of the invert channel. And again, I don't see any drastically different changes in hydrologic conditions.
And if I could, through the chair, it's Art Allen.
Go ahead. Yes, Art.
Yeah, so just to add to that, we are proposing, as Jeff mentioned, to put the beaver dam back in following construction, and also incorporate a beaver deceiver to maintain a more fixed water level, but still maintain that upstream impoundment, the temporary impoundment, as Jeff mentioned, as the beavers are just, I've looked at this several different times in different seasons, and the beavers bring the water level up. I've seen water flowing over the cart path. I've seen water, restricted to the channel at the culvert. We're not planning to drain that upstream impoundment or significantly alter that upstream wetland. And that's the purpose for putting the beaver dam back in, as well as a deceiver to kind of maintain a fixed level in that upstream wetland and pond. Does that make sense, Jeff, to you?
That makes sense, and certainly with respect to beaver activity, to put the beaver dam back in place would basically not change upstream hydrologic functions any differently than what's there now with the beaver dam currently in place.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for the help, Art.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else, Travis?
Back to you, Sandy.
Sure. Jonathan, have anything?
No, I was similar going to ask about the beaver condition, and that answered it. So
Okay, great. I've got a few questions. So basically you're trying to maintain the base flow through there without, dewatering, but you want to have a continuous base flow, which is based on what your trapezoid is. So that makes sense. And no matter what we do with the beavers now, they'll come back and do other things and continue to, alter the hydrology and alter, the areas of wetlands and so forth. I got a few questions. Some of it's just really some clarification. So you mentioned about the 8 swing. And you mentioned that obviously if you're using a typical lawnmower and stuff, it's not really, it's nowhere close to having the actual loads that an H20 vehicle was. And you mentioned, you know, to have an H20 for something future, I would make the recommendation is don't shoot for the H20 loading, shoot for an H10 loading. And if something happens in the future, whether it's 10 years or 20 years from now, there's always alternatives that, you know, a construction company could do to actually increase that loading over that culvert if they needed to do it for a one-off project. I think trying to meet an H20 loading for something that may happen way in the future or is maybe not needed at this point. I think it would be interesting to find out if that culvert had an H10 loading, which is, you know, just for everyone, if there's folks here from the public, H20, H10 actually indicates the weight per axle, and although it's not exactly like what I'm about to say, but it's in general, the H20 is 10,000 pounds per axle, H20 is 20,000 pounds per axle, so that means like an H20, a fire truck could go over there. But on an H10, you may not want your biggest tanker truck, but an ambulance could go over it. So again, it's, you know, it's kind of looking to me at the potential what needs to go over there at this point. That is just a suggestion on my part as far as, you know, the loading goes. And then one other question. So, you know, you talked about, you know, replacing it, and there's kind of, even though it's a 30-inch pipe, it's kind of in the ground, it's collapsed, it's, who knows what the actual hydraulic capacity of it is. What do we have any record of what the actual cart path elevation was? And does the top of the culvert match that, or is it higher?
We do have a detailed elevation. That elevation, we did an on-the-ground survey. A crew from our office did it. 386.8 feet is the elevation of the top of that impoundment for a distance of about 90 feet, give or take a tenth or so. And that's what we set the top of the culvert, excuse me. That's what we set the top of the culvert at, and it's an exposed concrete culvert. So it's very level, obviously man-made, and what we did is we started there and designed down that, and the invert elevation of the channel, the existing pipes, were the two critical points at which we designed the route.
Right. Yeah, the reason why I'm asking that is based on your comment about Nisco Brook and what the flood elevation is, and it's 3 or 4 feet above that. So you want to make sure that you're not adding to the top of the cart path, whether it's the top of a culvert or the old cart path. You don't want to reduce what's overflowing it based on what you were explaining as far as the elevations go. And then as far as the flood study goes, can you tell, I don't know if there was a section at this location, but can you tell if they actually included that culvert in their flood study, or was it so small they did not?
Thank you for asking. I did go through that. No, they did not include this flood study. The nearest upstream was at Adams Road, and the nearest downstream was at Merriam Road.
Okay, and that's fine. Again, what you're trying to do is replicate the hydraulic conditions there previously. So if you had top of the culvert at that elevation, that's understandable. That makes a lot of sense. And I think I know the answer to this, but just asking, are you going to have to remove any trees or anything in either the laydown or the actual installation of the culvert?
The best of my recollection, no major trees have to come down at any locations. The staging area is in a grassy area. There's saplings and such, maybe a lot of brush and maybe some saplings on the impoundment that goes across the floodway, if you will, but no major trees in that area where the culvert's going to be replaced.
Okay, which makes sense because it's been a cart path, but Okay, those were my questions. Thank you for the answers, and thank you for your due diligence of, this project is, for the town and so forth, but you're looking to meet all the regulations. I appreciate that. So at this point, I'll open it up to the public. If anyone is here from the public, has any questions or comments on this? We'll continue with the conversation as we go along. So, Leah, do you have anything to add to kind of our questions, or do you have any notes that you want to go through?
The only other note I have is just that we had to do a waiver request for work in the no disturb, obviously because of the nature of the project. So that's a separate vote we'll have to take. Other than that, I just had drafted some special conditions.
Okay, and anyone from the public, have they raised their hand or anything? Yeah,
Nothing
and
from the
Jeff, if you want to
public.
add? Okay, Jeff, you want to add something?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to speak just for a moment to how we approach the wheel load design. On the last page of the plan set, we tell the contractor, it's in the middle of the page. Yep, there it is. A little bit toward the left side, that's just below the cross-sectional view. There's some notes there. The contractors to provide the design prepared by the manufacturer's engineer. The desired wheel load is H20, which, as you said, 20,000 pounds per axle. If the contractor can't provide H20, we'd like to have them come back with a design, and I'd like to think that it would be at least H10. And that design, the thought was to post weight limit signs. As crazy as it sounds, my
Yep.
thinking is if there's grass fires, something else where a tanker's gonna come in, I'd like to accommodate the tankers if we can, but with the H20 loading. But if not, at least the signs would be posted at something less than the H20. And the town departments would know what they have to work with for weight restrictions for firefighting, other emergency access, or even regular maintenance of the fields and town construction activity or maintenance over there. And you bring up a very good point, Madam Chairman. If there were a construction project where somebody had to go out to bid, they could provide a temporary access over this by way of some type of structure that basically sits on top of, but yet technically spans this crossing for that type of project.
Yeah, no, and I think that condition, I had a note because that's where I was heading, because my concern is that you've matched the existing, cart path elevation to the top of the culvert. So if the contractor comes back and says, hey, we get H20, but we have to increase that by 18 inches or whatever that depth is, are you going to impact the overflow flood capacity of the stream?
Thank
So that would.
Good point. And if we could scroll up on the sheet, please, Jan. There we go. At the very top, at the culvert that we started the note, started this whole cross-section design with hold finish elevation of 3 to 6.8 at the inlet end, slope 5% down toward the outlet end. And then we work down from there, maximum top slab thickness of 18 inches.
Okay, perfect. All right, that responds to my concern for not creating some sort of wall during a flood event and so forth. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I did consider parapets along there for the benefit of people using the walking trail, but immediately decided against it for the reason you just indicated. And I'd rather see not a temporary railing, but some railing up there that if they ever get, that could be lagged into this, could be a benefit, but yet if there was a flood that wiped it out, well, it was the cost of a railing, but the culvert would be intact and the railing could be replaced.
Right. No, that's absolutely correct. We don't want to put any barriers or any restrictions for actually the large storm. We don't want to restrict it, a particular river, so. Anything from the public, Leah or Jan?
Nothing from the public.
Okay, so I'll go around and I'll ask, the commissioners if they have any, specific special conditions other than what, what, Leah's already kind of outlined in her report, and I'll just go through those special conditions, and then we can, actually vote on the waiver afterwards. So the special conditions would be contractor shall repair all disturbances to the access route and staging area to match improved existing conditions. Contractor shall seek staff approval to place any additional material along the access route. Beaver dam shall be reconstructed, potential for flood control device. Stream bed reconstruction shall be overseen by wetland scientists. Contractor shall provide final coffer dam details prior to commencement of work. So Jeff, do you have any specific specifications or requirements to that design for the coffer dam?
I don't. I'd like to see the commission keep the ability to review what the contractor puts forward. I've seen anything from sheet, the typical driven S-shaped panels to we had a job that we were monitoring for community. It was oversized sandbags that worked very well. Years ago, I can remember someone had a narrow stream and like a muddy channel, and they simply took a sheet of road plate and drove it in the ground for the day while they replaced the culvert. So I'd like to leave the contractor the flexibility to come back, but I think the commission should have the ability to make sure they get the opportunity to say yay and nay to what's proposed. And I wouldn't have a problem as the engineer on the project getting a first review at it before it even goes to the commission, if that's all right, if I work with your staff on that.
I appreciate that. So those are the special conditions that we're talking about. So I'll go quickly around the commission to see if there's any additional conditions that people like to see. Travis?
No, nothing else from me.
All right, thank you. Jonathan?
Nothing else.
Okay. So Leah, is there anything else to discuss before we move to the waiver request?
I just want to add that we want the final detail on the culvert that they come back with from a manufacturer as well.
Okay.
Oh, wait. So Leah, for the first one, repair all disturbance to access route, staging area to match existing. Would that include reseeding any bare soil with native plants?
Yeah, I believe Jeff has that written right in the notes on one of the sheets.
Okay, I was looking at the report. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, great. I think that's, any updates to the plan should be submitted to, it should be part of a condition and submitted to the commission. Doesn't need to go back to any kind of public meeting or anything, but it just needs to be submitted. Waiver request. Do I have a motion to request the waiver for work in the no disturb zone? The local bylaw no disturb. It's basically because it's a water dependent project and there's no way around it. If we'd like to make that motion.
Sure. I'll move to grant a waiver for work within the no disturb buffer.
All right, great, thanks. Second,
Second,
roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Jonathan?
yes.
I am also a yes, that motion carries. Okay. Anything else, Leah, before we kind of move to
Nope.
close the hearing and issue based with the condition? Hearing nothing. No one from the public has said anything. So do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions?
I'll move to close the hearing, issue order of conditions with the special conditions as discussed.
Second,
Thank you. Second. We got a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan?
yes.
Travis?
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So thank you very much. I look forward to being able to walk across that again. So appreciate the thoughtfulness in which you all, looked at this crossing and following the regulations. That's important. So thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Madam Chairman. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Uh,
Leah, should I stay on?
Yes, please.
Okay.
all right. So moving on, so the next one is the continued public hearing for 136 Old Upton Road, correct, Leah?
Yep. Right.
Okay, let's rock and roll. Pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Conservation Commission will hold public hearing, the act upon a notice of intent, an application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of a single-family house at 136 Old Upton Road. And I believe, Norm, you were here to discuss it.
Yes, good evening. This is Norman Hill, a licensed engineer and a licensed land surveyor with the consulting firm of Land Planning. When we last met, I introduced this project and explained how our client would like to build a new home with a new septic system, driveway, well, and he wants to also build a barn. And I think we went through this pretty thoroughly, but at the end of the meeting, it was decided that you retain Arthur Allen to have him check our wetland line. So Arthur has gone out to review our wetland line, and directly below the proposed work in the middle of the site, Arthur agreed with our wetland line, but at the northern end of the site and the southern end of the site, he did not agree with our wetland line. He moved flags uphill, varying distances, but he moved them uphill. So we went out and we surveyed the location of Arthur's new flags. And this plan in front of you is a revised plan which shows Arthur's new flags. Although Arthur moved those flags uphill, the work that's proposed still does not violate the 25-foot no disturb. But the wetland line did get a little closer to the barn, and it did get a little closer at the very southern end. But I don't see any real issues. And I'm hoping the board will vote to approve this project tonight.
Just a quick clarification. So when I look at the barn area, I can see basically a line type of long, short, and then to the kind of north of that is basically a dash line, a smaller line. That's the 25-foot no disturb, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that on the same page, because you didn't show the revised wetlands line, you just showed the revised 25-foot setback, correct? Am I reading this right?
No, we didn't revise the 25-foot. I noticed at the very northern end of the property, there's a squiggle in Arthur's wetland line, and we didn't revise that 25-foot. We didn't have time today. Yeah, we didn't revise that 25-foot no disturb at the very northern end of the property, but I think it's revised everywhere else, I believe. I missed that at the north.
Leah, we can't draw on this, can we?
Like for visual purposes right now,
Yes.
Jan can use her mouse. That's about it.
Okay.
I don't think we have that like laser pointer or anything.
Gotcha.
But I
Okay.
think Sandy, if I can clarify,
Yep.
the long line with 2 dashes is the no disturb. So the other one more northeast, where it's more often a dashed line, is their erosion control.
Oh, okay. All right. So this line has actually been updated, except for at the very northern end where there's a little. So the actual wetland line has been updated. Okay. I was just
Yes.
confused with the line type. Okay. Thank you
The
for the
wet-
clarification.
Sure, the wetland line is updated, the no disturb
Okay.
and the buffer zone to get that last jagged part have not
Right.
been changed.
Yeah. And that's why you indicated as a special condition.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I'll go around to, the other commissioners to see if they have any comments or questions at this time. Jonathan, anything?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Travis?
Because the garage is so close to the no disturb, Leah, is it reasonable to have the erosion control materials installed and then you or somebody can check that it's in place before excavation starts?
Yeah, that's what we usually do.
Perfect. I think that's it for me.
Okay. Leah, do you want to go through kind of, your recommended, special conditions?
Yeah, before we get there, I just had one thing for the commission to consider. DEP sort of chimed in the same way, which is just what method of protection does the commission want to see at the no disturb line? DEP talked about it more in light of they're getting close and how will we ensure that the resource areas are protected, but with our bylaw, we usually decide what's going on the no disturb line anyway, so we should talk through that.
Okay, so obviously we'll have our, signage that's required to be, installed, but the question is what we've done on many other projects, similar to this, especially when it's very close, in this case, close to a barn, that so it doesn't expand out, that there is some sort of visual barrier, and whether that's a real fence or whether it's stones or whether it's, boulders or whatever, or plantings or whatever. From our perspective, it's not about us prescribing that visual barrier. It's more about making sure that it's clear and then have the signage there. So I'd go back to Norm if you have any suggestions along that back of the barn of being able to put some sort of visual barrier there so people know you can't keep expanding.
I would suggest some sort of a fence, maybe a split rail fence.
So, so what we can do is we can include it as a condition, and then you can, submit something once you talk to the owner and so forth, and then, then submit it to Lear and so forth. And so we can have a condition to say that they'll be submitted and that the agent will review it to make sure it meets our general purpose of the condition, which is as a visual barrier with the signs on there. I don't think it needs to come back to the board, and we certainly don't need to continue the hearing because of it. So, does that sound okay to you, Leah?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go around to the rest of the commissioners to see if that approach works for everyone else. Travis, any comments on trying to have some sort of visual along that 25-foot no disturb?
Fence would probably be preferable, given the proximity to the house. But so yeah, nothing else though.
Jonathan?
I don't have a specific comment. I was just gonna say, Leah, it looks like she got bounced off. She just got back on though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry about that. My battery went from 50% to dead, so had to plug it in and hop back on. What did I miss?
Okay, so we just went through kind of having a visual barrier, what we've done previously, whether it's a split rail fence or some sort of fence, or if it's some other boulders or something. Just wanted to, create the condition that, that the applicant could then submit something to the office, and that you could then just kind of review it to make sure it meets the intent of the special condition, so we don't have to come back. Okay, all right. I mean, we've done this before. Yep.
Sandy, I got another question. How do you handle situations like this, Sandy, where you've got the wetland is on both sides of a stream like this? Like you've got upland on both sides, the wetlands in the middle. Are we not requiring the entire perimeter of the wetland to be flagged or marked?
Typically, we only put it on the work side.
So it's just on the house side. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Unless they were coming back with something they're doing on the other side.
But if it's existing
Um,
turf, they can continue to mow it, correct?
Yeah, it's called out as existing farm field, so,
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's it.
all right, thank you. So Leah, you have a couple of, special conditions. One is vehicular travel is prohibited across the old stream crossing to the north of the lot. I think on the last hearing, the applicant and their representative said that's not a problem. Only horses, right, Norm? That was the discussion previously. Whoops, Norm, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't quite understand what you're saying. You're a little
So, sorry, my headset is not great, on Zoom for whatever reason. But the cart path, that they're looking to have the horses go out and go across, that was discussed and that's no issue. But actually, vehicular travel, meaning any kind of, truck or something to use that road to go to the back. So, we're proposing that, vehicular travel is prohibited across the old stream crossing to the north of the lot.
Yeah, my client doesn't plan on putting any vehicles through there, I don't believe, but he would like to ride his horse through there.
It's horses are fine. We just don't want, vehicles going back there.
There is a
And it,
there's a hayfield out back. I don't know who cuts it. That might
and
be a
that's
kind of thing. I'm not sure.
that's farming. If they're doing that now, we're not going to prohibit that. But we just want to make it clear it's not recreational vehicles and other things that would, could potentially damage that crossing.
Right. Right.
Okay, and then the other special condition is that manure must be contained within the concrete masonry unit outside all resource areas in the no disturb zone.
That's fine.
Okay. Anything else, Leah, at this time?
Just from our conversation, I would just add two other conditions, one for the no disturb signs and whatever barrier the applicant comes up with. And the other is that we will receive a revised plan with the updated no disturb and buffer zone lines from the new delineation.
That's fine.
Okay. So at this point, I'll open it up to the public if anyone is here to ask questions or has any comments for this particular project. If you do, please raise your hand and we will call on you. And we'll give you an opportunity to do that. In the meantime, we'll continue with the discussion just to make sure that we've covered everything. So basically, the four special conditions is vehicular travel prohibited on the old stream crossing, that manure must be contained within concrete masonry unit outside of the resource or no disturb zone, that the no disturb signs be added along with a visual barrier, and that the applicant will submit what that visual barrier is that meets the intent of the visual barrier. And then number 4 is that updated plans be submitted that indicate the change, that small change in the no disturb and buffer zone line for that one area to the north where the wetlands bump out a little bit. So those are the 4 conditions. Have anyone from the public making any comments?
Nothing from the public, but Art Allen did raise his hand.
Oh, there you go, Art. I can't see all the raised hands, so you got the floor.
I just wanted to make sure you caught that, you were going to ask for the revised plan to show the 25-foot no disturb corrected, and you did, so I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Okay, all right. That was Leah catching that one, so that's good. All right, so those are the 4 special conditions. Seeing that there's no other discussion on it, and there's no one from the public, can I have a motion to close the hearing and issue order of conditions based, including the special conditions as discussed?
I'll move to close the hearing for 136 Old Upton. Issue order of conditions as discussed.
All right.
Second,
Second, we got a motion and second, roll call vote. Jonathan,
yes.
Travis,
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries.
Very much. Everyone stay well. Thank you.
All right, you
Thanks, Dave.
too.
Right now.
All right. All right, so let's see
Sorry.
here. So, all right, so moving on, any reason not to keep on going? I need to find my other sheet.
Go for it.
Okay, pursuant to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Grafton Stormwater Management Bylaw, and Grafton Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing to act upon a notice of intent application for Grafton Stormwater Bylaw permit and application for Grafton Wetlands Bylaw permit for the construction of the a residential subdivision at 18 Carroll Road. And who's here to discuss this? All right. So is Abby Rad here to, I can see he's there, but I don't know what happened to his camera.
Leslie, if you're
What's the
talking, we
second?
cannot hear you. Well, I see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you.
Still not
No.
hearing you. Oh,
Can't
there we
hear
go.
me?
It
Yep,
just picked
now
up.
we can.
Got it now?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm not a ventriloquist anymore.
no,
Okay, great.
okay. Do you have anything to present prior to us discussing and what the status is and so forth?
When we left off at the last hearing, we had an issue with the response to the phosphorus removal. And I did have a chance after the meeting to actually read through the document and look at the calculations. And I sent in through Leah the phosphorus calculations that I had calculated out. I didn't hear anything back in terms of if they were sufficient or not. So I believe that was the only thing that was left, was just that one item.
All right, appreciate that. So did take a look at that and you know, separate kind of occasion, I can kind of show you exactly how to do this, but the information you submitted had enough information in it to show that you're generally meeting the, or if not exactly meeting, very close to meeting that 60%.
Okay.
Use the entire volume, but it's really the recharge volume. But there's enough information in what you submitted to give me enough information that I could take a quick look at it so that we could be comfortable that that it is generally meeting the phosphorus removal
Okay, great.
to the detention basin.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that, I believe, Leah, was the outstanding item. Is there other things that we should discuss?
There's nothing else that I've changed on the project since the last hearing, so.
Okay. All right. Leah, anything on your side?
We do just need to vote on the waiver that was requested previously. Obviously, we moved in a different direction, but we never took a vote on the waiver request was made to request relief from providing those calculations. So we need to just do a formal vote to deny that waiver.
Just that, yeah, and the reason is, or the finding is that information was submitted relative to that, so. Do I
Right.
have a motion to request that request, and then we can vote on it afterwards. So it was a formal request, but we just want to make sure we take care of it. You know, it's not something that it's something that we asked for additional information, which we got. So it's almost not applicable anymore, but we do need to do just the formal process to get it off the book. So
Right.
a motion on that?
You need a motion to request a waiver? Or we need a
Yeah.
motion to request a waiver? Okay. I'll move to request a waiver.
Second,
That was and that's basically the applicant requested the waiver from,
Okay,
from having to submit the calculations or information was then submitted. So we don't have to, we don't approve that just simply because we already got the information. It's more just from Leah's point of view is cleaning up the record just so that
okay.
applicant requested it. So we go around and kind of vote for it. And you can give any reason that you're not voting for it because we received the information. So we've got a motion in a second. So we'll do a roll call vote. Travis?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Did you hear me?
We're not gonna- Yeah. So you want to grant that waiver even though we got the information that we requested. So it's a little bit backwards. Leah just wants to clean up the record so that,
So-
so what do we need to do here, Sandy? I'm a little confused.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
Leah.
cut in for a second?
I'm also having a hard time hearing you, Sandy.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
It's Zoom in my headset. It works well on Teams, but not on Zoom. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So the waiver request was made. We need to vote to deny the waiver request.
We need to deny
because we-
it because they met.
Correct.
Mhm.
There we
Correct.
go. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Leah.
Okay.
No problem.
So I am
Yeah.
voting no, essentially, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
We're
Yeah,
denying. So we're voting to deny the request for a waiver.
right. Just to clean the record.
That would make more sense to me, but okay. So I would like to
Jonathan.
change my vote to no.
All right,
Also a no.
Thank you. And I'm also a no. The waiver is denied, and that's based on the fact we actually received some information. So it's a little confusing. We're just trying to clean things up.
A little.
So, a little, yeah.
Thank you,
I promise
Chair.
I'm gonna buy. I promise I'm gonna buy a new headset because.
I'll buy you one, Sandy.
It just doesn't work on Zoom. It works great on Teams, but it doesn't work on Zoom for whatever reason. So, okay. So having said that, and then as far as special conditions, so one question, Leah. So as far as like the TSS removal and so forth, I mean, it doesn't meet the current rate requirements of 90%, but it's within a percentage point of what was originally done, was at 89%. I mean, so do we have to do a waiver on that, or can we just?
So,
It's not. It's just
so the
we just do
new,
a finding.
yeah, I mean, the new TSS sheet was now at 98, but the rationale given was changes to the product from the manufacturer.
Right. Yeah, that's.
And
I'm not
then
gonna set
we
that.
didn't really go further down that rabbit hole.
Okay. So-
But if we're agreeing
Yep.
that it's 98% TSS and over 60% TP, I can just make a finding. If we think they're not meeting those, then yeah, that would be another waiver request.
Okay. So, and again, that waiver would be just to, base it on what was previously done. So just for the applicant, what we're trying to do is just get the paperwork straight, and so forth. So let me
I
first
understand.
ask the commissioner first. Again, the 89% and the 85% TSS is sort of the 90% of that's from the original ones. But again, looking at the circumstances of when this was actually designed, that it's reasonable to allow that, and that would be a waiver. So just asking Travis, what's your opinion on that? Based on the fact that the site's almost finished.
I have no opinion on this one.
Okay. Jonathan?
So it's 1% shy of what we needed because we updated the bylaw, right?
Correct. Well, the MS4 got updated, which then caused the bylaw to get updated, yes.
So we're moving forward. If we pass a waiver, it's allowing that 89% to pass, even because the project's been going for that
It was-
long. Is that the thought process?
Yeah, basically it was previously approved. And
Okay.
only because it, you know, the fact that they let it expire, that this issue is coming up. If they had requested an extension, then there would be no change. Because they would have just extended it. The issue is that they did not extend it, therefore, you know, we're talking about 1% TSS removal.
Yeah, I have no opinion. I don't think it sets enough of a precedent because the project was started before. I don't know if there's thoughts on if it sets a precedent. That's all. If
I
other
don't think
folks
so. I think it's a unique, and it's kind of a unique circumstances, you know. It really has to do if the paperwork was done, we wouldn't be having any of this conversation. But because the paperwork wasn't done, we're having it. And then as far as the as far as the phosphorus removal, you know, I looked at it at the information provided and kind of estimated what the potential was to remove the phosphorus through the infiltration in the basin, and it's reasonable that it would be, if not at 60%, very close to it. So that's,
Okay.
you know. So do you need to Leah, have a waiver for allowing the original design to go forward
Yes.
based on all the discussions with that? Okay. So can someone make a motion to grant a waiver to maintain the previously calculated TSS removal in the additional information provided on the phosphorus removal, if that is sufficient, even though it is slightly less, that would be the motion, and then we have to vote on that. A waiver from the requirement of, I'll simplify it. It is a waiver from the requirement of 90% TSS removal and 60% total phosphorus removal, based on the fact that the original submission for TSS was 89% and 85%, and that the information submitted for the total phosphorus removal indicates that there will be substantial removal of the phosphorus. I didn't do the exact calculation, so I'm not going to put a number on it.
So moved.
All right, we have motion second,
Second.
and then do a roll call vote. Travis?
I think I'm a yes this time.
Yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
I am also a yes, the motion carries. So basically, the previous design and the additional information submitted, although it does not meet the revised numbers, but based on the circumstances, it has passed. Based on the unique circumstances of the findings, so yes. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, not quite done yet. As far as Leah, you indicated the special conditions would be the same as the previous special conditions from the previous Board of Conditions, correct?
Correct, and I just called out the few that went a little bit different than our standard conditions. You want me to read them through now?
Sure, why don't you do that?
So no disturb signage around the wetlands, the no disturb barrier adjacent to flags B8 through B20 and WF 15 through WF 26. The bond that we held previously will be reallocated to this set of permits, and the stormwater O&M plan shall be implemented. And just a quick reminder to open to the public.
So just to the applicant, so these are the same special conditions, just want to make sure that you have no issues with those.
No,
Okay.
no issues.
All right. Thank you. Leah, as far as anything else, I think we've hit everything except for the final
That's
motion.
it. Just
Okay.
open it to the public.
All right, thank you for that. If there's anyone online, any of the public has any comments or questions on what we just went through, we'd be happy to try to explain it to you. And then we'll just kind of wait a moment to see if anyone in the public has any comments or questions. Is there anyone, Jan, from the public online?
No one online, nothing from the public.
Okay, thank you very much. Having checked that, do I have a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of condition with the special conditions as previously issued for the expired plan?
I'll move to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions for 18 Carroll Road. The conditions as discussed by the agent.
All right, and then do I have a second? We have a motion, a second, roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I'm also a yes, and I'm going to retire my headset. So, sorry about it. And it's brand new. It's like, it's not even a month old, and I still have issues with it, so. All right, sorry about that. Other than that, you're all set. Just reach out to Leah or Jan as far as getting the updated order, excuse me, order of condition.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. Yeah.
Have a
Leah,
good
anything
night.
else? You too.
Thank you.
Leah, anything else?
That's all I have.
That's it. So we just have one thing left.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, motion adjourned in a second. Roll call vote. Travis,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I am also a yes. Hearing is closed.